My name is Avery Bennett, and I was 31 years old when the happiest day of my life became the day everything changed forever. On the morning of my wedding, I stood before the mirror inside the elegant bridal suite at Rosewood Estate, believing the hardest battle was finally behind me. For 6 long months, my mother, Margaret Bennett, had criticised every wedding decision I made, especially my dress. According to her, the lace gown I loved was far too revealing for a woman marrying into a respected family. It was modest, with delicate cap sleeves and a timeless design, but nothing satisfied my mother unless she had chosen it herself. After years of living beneath her constant criticism, I ignored the remarks. That day belonged to me and Ethan Carter, the man who had endured 2 overseas military deployments and nearly a year of long-distance calls so we could stand together at the altar. The ceremony began at 4 o'clock beneath an arch covered with white orchids. My father escorted me down the aisle, his trembling hand wrapped around mine. I couldn't tell whether he was nervous or proud. Ethan waited in his marine dress blues, standing tall with quiet confidence. The moment our eyes met, every worry disappeared. For one precious breath, I forgot my mother's disapproving glare from the 3rd row. The ceremony unfolded perfectly. We exchanged heartfelt vows, slipped rings onto each other's fingers, and were pronounced husband and wife. Our guests erupted into applause. For 4 wonderful seconds, life felt perfect. Then my mother rose from her seat. Without hesitation, she marched down the aisle, seized my arm and hissed, "No daughter of mine wears something like this." Before I could answer, her hand crashed across my face. The force spun my head sideways. White flashes blurred my vision. My teeth sliced into the inside of my cheek, and warm blood stained the lace covering my chest. Gasps swept through nearly 200 stunned guests. I staggered backward against the flower-covered arch, clutching my burning jaw while a deafening ringing filled my ears. Someone screamed. My father remained frozen. Ethan didn't. He stepped between us with calm precision, shielding me completely. His expression never changed as he looked directly at my mother. In a steady, commanding voice that silenced every whisper in the garden, he said, "You just assaulted an officer." Then, without raising his voice even slightly, he gave a second order. "Face the wall, part 2, 400 words." The entire garden fell silent. My mother stared at Ethan as though she couldn't believe anyone had dared challenge her. Her hand still hovered in the air, frozen after the slap. "Excuse me," she snapped. Ethan never flinched. Instead, he calmly stepped closer, keeping himself between us like a shield. Years in the Marine Corps had taught him how to control a room without shouting, and every guest instinctively sensed they were witnessing someone who expected to be obeyed. He'd nodded toward his best man, Lucas Harper, another Marine officer. Lucas immediately pulled out his phone. I sat trembling on a nearby chair while my maid of honour, Natalie Brooks, pressed a linen-wrapped bag of ice against my swelling jaw. My makeup artist carefully wiped the blood from my lip with shaking hands. For the first time in my life, my mother looked uncertain. She had spent decades deciding what I could wear, where I could go, who I could date, and even how I should speak in public. No one had ever stopped her. My father usually apologised for her. My relatives always changed the subject. But Ethan wasn't part of my family. He refused to play by their rules. He looked directly at my mother and said, "She's my wife now. You assaulted her in front of nearly 200 witnesses, including several active-duty military officers who are required to report violent crimes." The confidence disappeared from my mother's face. Horrid tried stepping toward me again, insisting I had embarrassed the family by wearing a dress that exposed my shoulders. Lucas quietly blocked her path. "You've said enough," he replied. Within 20 minutes, 2 local police officers arrived after a guest with law enforcement experience reported the assault. They separated everyone involved and began taking statements. My mother's face turned pale as the officers asked her to step aside. Meanwhile, photographs were taken of the bruise spreading across my jaw and the bloodstains on my wedding gown. Nearly a dozen guests volunteered to describe exactly what they had witnessed. I remained silent, overwhelmed by everything happening around me. The officers informed my mother that the district attorney would review the case and contact her soon. No one danced that evening. No one cut the wedding cake. Instead of driving to our honeymoon suite, Ethan gently carried me to the car, still wearing my torn, blood-stained gown. He took me straight to urgent care. The doctor confirmed my jaw wasn't broken, but the deep cut inside my cheek required 2 stitches. Sitting on that examination table in my wedding dress, I finally broke down and cried. The week after our wedding, the district attorney's office contacted me. Detective Monica Hayes patiently explained the investigation and assured me the evidence was overwhelming. More than 200 guests had witnessed the assault, 6 military officers had submitted official statements, and the wedding photographer had unknowingly captured the entire incident from a side angle. I had no idea the camera recorded the moment until the detective mentioned it. That video changed everything. My mother hired an expensive defense attorney and pleaded not guilty. She claimed I had provoked her by choosing an inappropriate dress and insisted she had only acted out of concern for the family's reputation. For a while, I prepared myself for a painful public trial. Through every meeting with prosecutors and every sleepless night replaying the slap in my mind, Ethan never left my side. He never pressured me to forgive or forget. He simply held my hand whenever I needed strength. 3 weeks later, the case shifted dramatically. Confronted with the video, medical records, and numerous eyewitness accounts, my mother's attorney advised her that a trial would almost certainly end with a harsher punishment. She agreed to accept responsibility. 2 days later, we stood inside a downtown courtroom as my mother admitted under oath that she had deliberately planned to confront me if I wore the wedding dress she disliked. She confessed that she struck me without any physical provocation and lost control in front of everyone. Hearing those words lifted a burden I had carried since childhood. For 31 years, every insult, every criticism, and every attempt to control my life had been explained away as love. In that courtroom, the excuses finally disappeared. The judge sentenced her to probation, mandatory anger management classes, community service, and a 1-year restraining order preventing any contact with me. My father sat quietly behind her throughout the hearing. He never defended me, apologised, or even looked into my eyes. When the judge struck the gavel, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. Outside the courthouse, Ethan slipped his hand into mine and together we began planning the future that our interrupted wedding had stolen from us. We postponed our honeymoon until spring, and my injuries healed within weeks, leaving only a faint scar inside my cheek. Some wounds fade, others become reminders of the moment you finally stopped accepting what once seemed normal. My father and I never rebuilt our relationship, but Ethan and I built something stronger instead. A marriage founded on trust, respect, and the certainty that we would always stand beside each other, no matter who stood against us.